Choosing choir music, how to avoid the sin of selecting repertoire that doesn't match your choir. We are going to look at the selection of music and the role of the choir director today in probably a way that might be new, or maybe a kind of a new perspective for everyone today. So let's go ahead and dive in. The problem that we're here to solve is I want to be able to create the best experience I can for everybody in my choir by selecting the right music for them. And we're going to talk about ways to do that. So, all right, probably you also have come looking for free choir music resources. So I will post this. We're not even really going to discuss this very much because there's so much free choir music out there on the internet. I'm not even going to say that it's good or bad, or not all of it is good or not all of it is bad, because really it kind of depends on the factors that we're going to discuss today. But if you want to buy choir music, go right ahead. You can apply these principles that we're going to discuss. If you want to download music for free, also you can do the same thing. We're not talking about where to acquire your music. We're going to talk about which music to acquire. So that's why we're going to kind of just get this out on the table and get it over with, and then move on. So I will distribute these slides to everyone that attends, actually everyone that has signed up for the workshop today in general, so you can look for a copy of the slides later. But let's pretend that you've got you're newly called to a choir director role, and you've got, like, let's say that you have a stake music library, like a big filing cabinet full of stuff that you could sing. Where do you start? Or you have no filing cabinet with nothing in it, right? So you have to start from scratch. So what do? All right. We're going to talk about the choir director as product manager. Is anyone familiar with what a product manager does? Some? Okay. Are you a product manager?
No.
Okay. How about you? Back there, no? A product manager is the person in a business or in a market segment, or in a market that is responsible to understand who the market consists of, what it is that they need, what the problems are that they're trying to solve, and then how the product can solve those problems for them. And so we are not going to view the choir director today as the person who is just called to pick a song and lead a rehearsal. We're going to look at the choir director today as the product manager for your market, if that makes sense. All right. So the product manager needs to know the target market and its segments, needs to know what the motivators and the demotivators are. Sorry, Judy. What the motivators and the demotivators are, and also what problem are the segments trying to solve. So we're going to talk about the choir the segments of the ward choir market. Okay, you ready for this? Are you excited? This is going to be cool. Okay, so this is I don't have like real data, so I can't say that this is like backed by a survey, but I've kind of painted a picture here for you, and then probably a lot of this will resonate with you as in your own personal experience. So we're going to look at 3 segments. This is Justin, the beginner, Kathy, the intermediate, and Emily, the advanced. So these are beginner musician, intermediate musician, and advanced musician. And we're going to talk about Justin, the beginner, first. So what problem is Justin, the beginner, trying to solve? Justin, he wants to discover something new about music. For him, music is a green field. He has no idea how to read music. He doesn't know really, like, maybe he has a good enough ear that he can come and participate in choir. Maybe not. He's still there. It doesn't matter. He's there to discover something new. And he's excited about that. And for him, there's very low risk involved because he can only go up. He can't possibly like get worse because he's at the very, very bottom, So he's just there to experience something that he's not experienced before. So his motivators are curiosity and exploration. He wants to learn from an expert, the choir director. He also wants to have a fun social experience, and he wants to remember the uplifting repertoire and take it with him throughout the week. So this is the person that comes, learns these songs, and then all week long they're singing these songs, and they're just enjoying it because they feel uplifted by it, and they're just having a great positive experience. They're just happy that they have an opportunity to learn in this setting. Does he have any demotivators? Yes, potentially. For example, he could be demotivated if the expectations of him are too high, like if he's being tasked with problems to solve in the rehearsal that he can't solve himself. Or, for example, if he's just got poor health or other family commitments, he might stop coming to choir. But generally, he's pretty motivated because he can't lose. He can only gain, he can only go up. He can't go down. So does everyone know of someone like this in your word choir? Yeah, this is the person that's so excited to be there, and there's no risk because it's just like, don't expect anything, I'm totally new. Okay, Kathy, the intermediate. This is the middle of the range, okay, between novice to advanced. And this is probably the highest risk area, this segment right here. So Kathy, she wants to challenge herself in a safe environment. So for example, her motivators are, it's not a green field. She's already experienced with music. She already knows how to read music, probably pretty well. Maybe she has to learn these specific notes for this part, and she needs to like hear that one tricky spot versus this other passage that she already knows pretty well. It doesn't really have to put in a lot of effort there, but oh, this one part, I get lost here. What do I do? So her motivator is that she has a relationship with the choir director, and she trusts the choir director to create a safe environment for her. All right. And she wants to push herself musically. So she's there because she's got a musical foundation, but there's still a lot that she wants to learn. She wants to learn, she wants to push herself musically, but the problem is that she also feels self-conscious about it. And so if she's in a situation where she's being asked to do things musically that she doesn't know how to do, she is only going to do that for the choir director that is her friend or that is going to support her and help her feel comfortable doing it. She also wants to have a fun social experience. She's not going to go to choir if it's going to be boring and dry. Her demotivators, being singled out or scrutinized. This is going to be more acute for her than it's going to be for Justin the beginner, right? Because Justin is like, I know that I don't know anything, so you can go ahead and single me out. I just don't, but you need to give me tools in order to solve these problems. With Kathy, it's like, I probably should already have these tools, but if you push me too hard, I'll just freeze, and I'll feel uncomfortable. That'll be a huge demotivator for me if I feel singled out. In fact, we have people that fall away from the church, or they become inactive in the church because someone offended them. And then there are people that become inactive from word choir because someone offended them, right? So it's like the church within the church, Come back to word choir. We'd love to have you, So she doesn't want to feel singled out or scrutinized. If the outside pressure of life, if the pressures of external life outside the choir, if that outweighs the payoff of participating in ward choir, she'll take a break. She'll stop coming. Maybe she'll re-engage later, but she might stop coming for 6 months, a year, 2 years. She might just wait until there's a new choir director if the relationship's not there with a new choir director. Maybe she only participates if the choir director is her friend already, and so like it has more to do with a friend than it has to do with the actual position. Okay, so a demotivator would be then having to build a new relationship of trust with the new choir director. So that is Kathy. Now we're going to talk about Emily, the advanced musician. Okay, all right. What is Emily's? What problem is she trying to solve? She wants to have an uplifting musical experience. Okay, she is an experienced musician. She knows what music making is like and how to make music well. So for her, the motivators are great repertoire. She feels an obligation to share her talents because in many cases she has even made promises to God that she will use her talents to build the kingdom, right? So she's looking at this from a covenant-making perspective. And then also, she wants to support the other ward musicians. It's kind of like paying it forward, right? You're a ward musician right now. I come to your choir. I'll attend, and then when I become the ward choir director, or when I have a special assignment to do a musical number, or I'm in the state choir, then you'll come with me, or you'll participate with me at that time. Or just that we'll have something in common to, we can relate to each other because we're both musicians. And so therefore, I'm going to invest in my relationships with other musicians in the ward. And so that's of interest to her because it's her community that she's trying to build around her. The demotivator for Emily, or for the advanced musician, is if the rehearsals are ineffective. She's come, maybe she doesn't really want to be there, but she does feel obligated and she wants to contribute. But if you make poor use of her time, then she doesn't feel as obligated anymore because she's not building the kingdom with her talents. She's just wasting time. So that'll give her more of a justification to stop coming. Then also, if there are consistently poor choices in repertoire, if you're singing music that Emily doesn't like, and if you do it once for like 1 month, she can kind of be like, I'm still going to stick around because the choir director is my friend. I'm in a community. I want to show support. I want to build the other musicians here. Fine. But if month after month after month after month you are picking repertoire that Emily can't stand, she's going to stop coming. So, all right. So, questions about our segments, our market segments for choir. Is this resonating with anybody? Does this sound familiar? Okay. All right. So you're with me. Good. All right. Any other comments or observations then besides questions? Okay, so we've got our segments identified. There are probably some others, just like the teenage child of the parent that is also attending choir, and they want to spend time with their parent. But we're not going to go into that because we don't have real data. Say what? Or the parent is the parent is being coerced. We should probably add that then as a fifth segment then. Okay. All right. So the trick is that okay. So sorry. Let's do this. So we've got kind of two dimensions here. There's this skill dimension, right? If the musician is a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, so we have this skill dimension. And then we also have this personal risk dimension, right? So whenever you join a choir, there is a measure of personal risk that you assume. It could be high for some people and low for others. It's going to be higher for the intermediate musician, right? Because they feel kind of self-conscious. They have a background, but maybe they don't feel comfortable, and they have to have that safe environment. So that's high risk for them. If they feel uncomfortable, they will stop coming. And if they feel like this situation is too risky, they'll stop coming. You're going to have less personal risk for the advanced group, right? The advanced musicians, because they're there to help. They're there to serve. They're there to contribute and to do what they can to make your choir the strongest choir it can be. The worst thing that can happen to them is that they're risking losing their time to an ineffective rehearsal or to repertoire that they don't like. It's not very high risk, but still a risk nonetheless. And then, but the beginner group, they actually are a lower risk group than the intermediate musician, which is kind of ironic, right? You think they would be the highest risk group because they know the least out of all of those three segments. But in actuality, because they know the least, they have low expectations, and so the risk is not that high for them. They're just there to have a great time. So, all right. The trick is then to select repertoire that will provide a great experience for all three of those groups at the same time. Does that sound easy or difficult? It can be tricky. It's this spot right here in the middle that we're looking for. We want, so first of all, we have to understand our choir members, because not every choir is going to look just like this. Think about how your choir looks relative to these three groups. Maybe your choir is like mostly these people. Someone told me last night as I was texting, kind of doing a little poll to get data information for this presentation, that they had like a ward choir that had like 40 people in it. And they were mostly advanced musicians because they had like advanced degrees in music. They were just living in an area where, and I know, that probably doesn't match like the demographics here in Eagle Mountain and Saratoga Springs. Because what are we doing here? Who are we? Mostly parents of young children and grandparents, right? And so the chances that you're going to have like 40 really well-trained musicians in one ward are pretty low. I think that's an anomaly. Like, more power to you. Have a great time. But, okay. Maybe your choir is more, it tends more to come toward the beginner level. I'll bet in Utah, you're probably going to have a ward choir that has maybe like 3 or 4 of these people. And you're going to have maybe 8 to 12 of these people and about 4 of these people. Does that sound about like everyone else's choir? Yeah? Okay. All right, so what we want to do is select music that reduces risk and capitalizes on skill. And so we want the music to be simple enough for the beginner, we want it to be challenging enough for the intermediate, and we want it to be aesthetic enough for the advanced. How on earth do you do all three of those things at the same time? Anybody want to offer any ideas? Okay. Well, I think one thing to do is we want to look at, I forgot to actually make a slide about this, but so a couple suggestions, and we're going to talk about these before we do some small group exercises. One suggestion is you want to make sure that you look at the texture of the piece, meaning the number of voices, like the configuration of voices. If you have a choir of 9 people, you do not want to pick a piece that has 8-part harmony. Don't do it. Especially if you have a choir of 9 people and 2 of them are beginners and 4 of them are intermediates, and only 3 of them are advanced. Do not do a piece with 8-part harmony. Okay. When my wife and I were living in Virginia, we were in this ward, and I was serving as the choir director, and people started, they stopped attending. So like the attendance started to go down, and I like posted like, why are people not attending, this choir? And I started to get these comments that were from the choir members, like, well, one of the sisters, she said, I could come back, but that would be a lot of altos. I was like, gold mine, like I just struck gold. What wonderful feedback. She felt like she was extra because there were already a lot of altos. Well, why should I be there? I've got my external pressures of life, and there are other altos there. If I keep attending, then I will be doing a disservice to the choir. So it would be more convenient for me to not come, and the choir is not going to suffer. In fact, I'm improving the choir by not coming. So what we did is we got music that focused on a strong alto section, and we had the sopranos sing the alto part. So it's like a lower register women's line, and then maybe like one men's line to accompany them. So rather than having a 8-part harmony or a 4-part harmony, it was really just a duet with accompaniment, right? So now it doesn't matter if you're an alto or a soprano because all the women are singing the same line, and it's going to fit in your alto range, and the sopranos will be fine too. It doesn't go too low that the sopranos can't sing it. So then it's this notion of tailoring the music to make sure that it matches the least among us, the weakest among us. Yeah, Emily, did you want to make a comment?
Did you write that? And you said, I'm going to write something with a strong alto line? Or how would you suggest that we don't have the luxury of making our own arrangements, sift through all of the Sally Ford and everything, like all the sheet music?
Yeah, good question.
I want something for strong altos. And that would be an overwhelming.
That's a good point. If you really need to get if you feel like you can't find music that capitalizes on the strengths of your choir, and you don't have the skills to arrange something, what you can do, so here's some other options. You could ask the pianist, the accompanist, if he or she can transpose something down a few keys, right? And then you can sing straight out of the hymn book. And you can focus on, so for those of you that were in the 9 o'clock session this morning, focus on just singing beautifully straight out of the hymn book with the right kind of phrasing and musicality and the right breath support and the right vowels. And that will be aesthetic enough for the advanced. They can truly appreciate the aesthetics of singing in a choir where we just have a beautiful sound. Forget the fancy arrangement. I just want to be in a choir where I can feel like my voice as a musician, as an advanced musician, can be fully appreciated, or I can have the full measure of, it's like that one day or that one evening when you're putting your child to bed and you feel like the muse has just touched your voice and you just, man, I'm just feeling really good about my singing tonight. You look down, your child has their fingers in their ears, So you want them to feel like that, that even if the repertoire that you've picked isn't fancy, it still is aesthetic. And let's pause then to talk about that for just a second too, because it's very qualitative. What is aesthetic? If you were to ask the advanced musician, well, what kind of music do you want to sing? That's probably your best bet for getting the right kind of feedback, because it's going to vary from person to person. I know advanced musicians that they are okay with whatever you want put in front of them, and other ones that are just like, I will not sing that song. In fact, there's this one song that I was asked to sing. Okay, so I'm talking about more pop-like music that is actually even discouraged in the handbook. So if you pick music like that, that's one category of music that the advanced musician will probably will not enjoy, and will not want to sing if you keep doing more and more and more and more of it, time after time. Once, again in Virginia, there was a Relief Society president in the other ward. So there's 2 wards in the city, and she asked her counselor to reach out to me to ask me to sing this song at a Relief Society activity. And it was this song that, for me, wasn't very, it was more of a pop-oriented song, and I just don't appreciate that kind of music, and I don't enjoy singing it. In fact, it is so distracting for me personally. I'm not saying this is bad for everybody. I'm saying that for me personally, it distracts me from worshiping. It does not add to it. And so I thought, what am I going to do? I can't possibly get up in front of all those sisters and sing this song. I will start laughing, or something will happen, and it'll just be awful. And so I told the counselor, you know what, I really just don't feel comfortable singing that song. And I told her why, and she understood, and she promised me that she would be tactful when she told the Relief Society president that I would prefer to sing a different song, or not sing, you know. And so she went back and told the Relief Society president, and then the Relief Society president and I spoke later, and she said, oh yeah, no problem. If that piece is too hard for you, we can do something else. And I just went like, okay, great, you know. And I just kind of let it slide, you know, because I didn't want to like rain on someone else's parade. But you got to know, as a choir director, that these people in the advanced segment, they do not want to sing music that is going to detract from their worship. They only want to sing music that will add to it. And so if you're not sure what that music is, the best thing to do is ask them. Find one or two people that you trust that are among the advanced musicians in your choir and ask them, what do you think about this piece? Is this okay? And they'll tell you like, don't like it. Or like, yeah, it's okay. And they'll have their various reasons, you know. And after a while, you can kind of get a feel for the tolerance level and what kind of music that your choir members will appreciate. So I'm not here to tell you, don't ever sing this stuff. I'm here to tell you, you need to get input from your market, from your target market, about what.
You can ask them, say, what is your favorite?
Right.
You know, what's something that the Motown sings that is your favorite?
That's a great segue. Okay, so when asking them what is your favorite, they will have favorites. You probably also have favorites. And why are they your favorites? Because you had an amazing experience at some prior event with this piece, right? You sang it at BYU, or you heard it on BYU television, or whatever. And so you think, well, because I had this wonderful spiritual experience with this piece in this other context, I can import it into my new context and it will work. And that won't always be the case. And so you have to be really sensitive to whether or not you are doing a piece because you like it or because it's the best piece for your choir members to have a good experience. And to be able, and to be big enough to say, even though I love this piece, this is not the right piece for our choir at this time. Yeah?
But it goes along with, if you love the piece and you're excited about it and you have a testimony, it was a testimony building thing for you and you share that with your choir, that it can help the choir to feel that way about it too sometimes, I think.
It can, and I'm not saying don't do that. What I'm saying though is that if that piece is too difficult technically for this group, they won't have a good experience. They will have to come, and you will have to rehearse again and again and again and again. And what should be like, how many rehearsals do you feel like you should put into one sacrament meeting number? How many is a good number? 2 or 3, maybe 4. Should you be practicing like 6 or 7 weeks to perform one number? Why not?
It's too challenging for the majority of your
They will not like it because they've been working on the same stuff for forever and it's too hard. They will not like it because they're getting bored. They will not like it because they're bored after the first week. They've learned, what they will do to still be supportive, they will not come to any of the rehearsals until the morning of. They will show up for your 8:30 rehearsal. They will sing through it once. They will kind of not articulate that one consonant because they know that it's a danger area and they don't want to step in the hole. And then they know that they can do that because they've already done it previously. Like, I'll just get up there and I just won't sing any consonants and no one will notice, you know? That's what they'll do, okay? Oh, thou kind, gracious Father. That's what they'll do, yeah, okay. All right, so try to separate yourself from the personal experience that you had with the piece and say, yes, I had a personal experience with this piece and it's wonderful, I love it, it's spiritual, it edified me. If it's the right piece for my choir, we'll do it. Yeah, there's room for that. And I'll share that experience with them. And then now they've had a personal experience with that piece. But if it's not the right piece for them, don't do it, because now you are actually going to detract even from your own personal experience with that piece, because now you will drag your choir through 6 weeks of rehearsal and it'll be a demotivator. Yeah.
I've had that issue a lot, but a couple times where we'll pick a piece and go through it, and I feel so awful doing that, but I have to pull it because I realize it's not a good piece for whatever, or I realize it had some issues or whatever, and I feel so bad for having wasted their practice time, and I don't know, I wonder if it's better to just push through or take it away, and obviously I've taken it away, but I still feel like sort of unreliable as a, because they're like, what, we've just practiced this for this many weeks, and
wow, so you had that, thank you for sharing that with me. That's a pretty intense learning experience for you personally as a choir director.
Well, and we've resolved to circle up and meet, with the pianist and the several people and just make sure, just so that doesn't happen again. But it's not a good experience when that happens. So if that does happen, sometimes you don't know until later that it's not the right piece for your choir.
How can you get better at knowing in advance?
Yeah, how?
I think that it has to do you want to answer that question?
Well, I've had that experience before, and I would put myself in the aesthetic category if I'm looking at that, and I have...
As an advanced musician?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
I'm musically okay with things.
Yeah.
And as a choir director, you do have to look at things, and sometimes you do have those slip-ups where you're going, this is a good piece, I think they can do it, and then you have those choir members that you're counting on to be there, and they don't come, and so then you have to redirect kind of what you're going with. And it's good to take a look at the music with your pianist, and maybe you can cut sections out. Maybe you can rechange the melody to be a little bit more simpler, or things like that, where you don't have to cut the piece and go, well, you all sucked at that, so I'm cutting it. And maybe redirect it so that you go, okay, the altos are really struggling.
Don't say it like that.
So we'll. I'm just really. I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
But in your head, you're going, you guys really suck. So we're really but you can kind of redirect it so that maybe your challenging parts you can simplify. Look at your accompaniment. There might be a simpler version of that section that you can implement into your voices to kind of not pull it because of their lack of ability, but to cater it to
adapt
the people you are singing that are singing it.
I think that's a good point, is to take the music that you do have rather than pulling it and to adapt it in some way, simplify it.
What were the specific issues why you decided that it wasn't going to work after several weeks?
Well, I think one thing was some parts of it were poorly written. It's those free musics that you find that are, just not working. Other things, I think the choir, it was too hard for the choir, and I didn't realize until too late.
Sometimes if you ask the choir, what do you think? Is this too hard for us? And then they'll tell you. That way it's not such a blow that you have lost confidence in them, but they're like, hey, this is not working out for us either. So then it can be a collective decision. And that can be more, it can be easier to swallow. Okay, we've got 3 scenarios here, and there are several pieces of music around the room. So you can see there's a score over here, there's a piece over there, one back there, and back there, and back there, and back there. Okay, so there are 7 pieces of music. We're going to pretend that these are the 7 pieces of music in your stake filing cabinet, or in your whatever library or whatever. And you got these 3 scenarios. Our choir needs a strong leader. We have over 30 singers, and most of them are intermediate or advanced. So this is the choir that is skewed toward the advanced group, right? Our choir is struggling. We have only 12 singers. We have a few intermediate. I don't want to discourage anyone here who has 12 singers in their choir right now, but yeah, that's okay.
I'm not a choir director, but that's me bringing my children with me.
Oh, you don't have 12 children. You're talking about the choir itself. Yeah. Okay. You're augmenting. You're like half the choir, basically.
A lot of time with the only
Yeah.
male.
Yeah. Now, for some units, they might not consider this to be a struggling choir, and I don't want to. Probably should be more tactful about that, because this is just the choir that they have. But some units will have a choir of like 6 people and not 12 people. But if they're good, it's great. Then you have a wonderful chamber ensemble, right? Mm-hmm. So we have only 12 singers. We have a few intermediate sopranos and altos. Most of the singers are beginners. We have only a few men, 1 intermediate and 2 beginners. In the third scenario, our choir is pretty good. We have at least 1 or 2 strong singers in every section, and then a lot of intermediates. So what I'd like you to do is there are two groups of four and two groups of three. So as a group, I'd like you to stand and move around the room and look at these scores. And based upon the scenarios that we've outlined, discuss, as you're looking through the scores, which piece out of the 7 you feel like would be the best match for each of these 3 scenarios. So you may not, so you're only going to select 3 pieces, 1 for each scenario. And you may select different pieces. That's okay. Just be prepared to speak to why you chose those pieces. You're going to want to look at things like, what's the texture of the piece? So what are the configuration of the voices, right? So is it SATB? Is it SSAATTBB? Is it SAB? You know, so look at how many parts there are, and then compare that with what you have up here. You're going to want to look at things like the homophony and polyphony. You know, so like there are pieces that are really advanced because they have like different voices coming in at different times. So pay attention to that. Look at just the difficulty of the line and the harmony. You know, if the men are singing the harmony, a harmony, how complex is it? Or is it pretty easy to catch up on? So this is you going through the filing cabinet. All you have to go off of is what you see on a printed page. Now, in real life, you probably actually could find recordings and stuff on YouTube, or when you're downloading music from the internet, they will frequently provide not only the score as a PDF, but they will provide either a live like a real recording, an acoustic recording, or they will provide like some kind of an electronic MIDI file that will at least give you a feel for how the piece is written. So you may have more to go off of than you will have right now in the next few minutes. But what time is it? It is 11:38. So let's take about 10 minutes. And if you don't get to all 7 of them, that's okay. Just make sure that you pick 3 pieces and then be prepared to speak to why you picked them for this scenario. Okay? All right. Okay, go ahead and take your seats. It was fun? Oh, good. I'm glad you had a good time. Did anybody else have fun?
Yes, I think that.
Good. Isn't this pretty? I love this. Mendelssohn? Yeah. That's great. This is one of the pieces, my earliest pieces singing in a ward choir. I think my mom was actually the director at that time, and we sang this. And yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty. Sung in general conference by the Tabernacle Choir. One thing about it, though, is that it's very, very high for the sopranos. And so, yeah. Okay, what do we pick for the strong choir of 30 intermediate and advanced singers? Yeah, Mendelssohn. You picked, what was that one back there? Be That My Vision. Why did you pick that one for the advanced choir? There were 8 parts. Okay, all right, cool. What did you guys pick for the advanced choir? Mendelssohn. What did you pick? Also, okay, all right, good. There's no right or wrong answer, right? You know, sorry, there is a wrong answer, but there's not like one right answer. Okay, so now for the choir that's struggling with 12 singers. Most of the singers are beginners, and then we have like 3 men. Which piece did you pick for that one? Is this the primary? You picked Abide With Me? Is that what this one is here? Oh, this is Jesus Truly Living In? Abide With Me is simple enough? Okay. Why did you pick Abide With Me? So who picked Abide With Me? Why? One men's part. It's written for SAB, right? That's great. That's like the salvation for this choir, right? Like, we don't have to teach 2 different men's parts, and we have one singer who's intermediate, so he can kind of carry the other 2 men, and they can listen to him, and you can make it through. You know, that's like the salvation for the men's section. Who picked something else besides Abide With Me?
I felt like we could use this one for that struggling choir, but maybe have to make some adaptation in the men's part. So.
Oh, okay. Just
it
so
depends on where's the intermediate singer. Is he the tenor or is he a bass?
Right. Okay. Maybe the choir director is a male also, and the choir director can also sing. You know, if you're the male choir director, you can kind of compensate for whichever of the 2 male parts is weaker. If you're a female choir director, then you can't compensate for the men. That must be a recurring frustration for most women, not being able to compensate for the men. Okay. All right. Our choir is pretty good. We have at least 1 or 2 strong singers in every section. And then a lot of intermediates. What did you pick for that one? This one up here is Secret Prayer. Why did you pick Secret Prayer?
It's a little bit challenging with the rhythm, but it's like a good enough is challenging.
Right.
There's also a hymn that we know from the hymn book that is just embellished as well.
Yeah, it's familiar, but it's different enough. And
Yeah. In linguistics and in language acquisition, they have a term called I+1. It's like the amount of comprehensible input. So if you're listening to a foreign language, you understand so much of it. When you want to acquire more language, you have to have your amount of comprehensible input +1, like plus a little bit more, like a small increment. And so with the the rhythms in the secret prayer, it might be just the right amount of incremental difficulty to like get them to step up and learn something new. So, all right. First come, first serve. Anyone who wants to take any of these scores home, you are welcome. The thing about, I will put a plug in for secret prayer because in terms of meeting in the middle, I feel like this piece is like right here in the middle. It is beautiful. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's simple enough for most choirs to learn. If you have enough strong singers in each section, and it's free, it's like this is like ideal. Catherine Wright, yeah. This is Catherine Wright's secret prayer. If you go to her website, which is also linked on the first slide, you can see the other arrangements that she has available for free. But very, very talented arranger, and I recommend this one. We did this at the workshop last year here, for those of you that sang last year in the choir, and then also we did it in our ward choir in November, and then we sang it again at the state conference just last month. And hers is, it'll be on the slide. Hers is CatherineWrightMusic.com. WrightMusicStudio.com. In fact, that same brother who you weren't here in that session. One of the brothers that sang with us at state conference told me that this experience, singing this hymn, was so edifying for him and that it had changed his perspective on this hymn specifically. So a hymn that he didn't really like now became a hymn that he loved because of the service that the choir, that the director rendered to him in selecting music that would help him experience this hymn in a new way. And so now whenever he goes back to sing that hymn straight out of the hymn book, he'll remember the experience that he had and the message that he felt, the message that he received, and also the feelings that he felt. So, all right, we're going to have devotional at 12 o'clock. We are done here. Thank you so much for attending. I hope this was helpful. Did you learn something new? Is this, okay. I will distribute this to all the attendees.
Make one 30-second comment.
Yes, please do.
One of the things that we didn't touch base on, but I think it's very important, is when you choose your music, do it prayerfully.
Oh, yes.
Do it with thought. Make sure you've got an answer to whatever you're requesting, because it makes a big difference in what you choose. It's not just go out and pick some music because you like the music. Is this music going to enable the Spirit to be a part of this meeting? And is it the right music for this meeting? I can't tell you how many times I've gone on faith when I picked music for state conference or for board when I was in that situation, where it took me a week to decide what music we were going to have, or longer. And I would go in there with blind faith in hopes that it would complement the message that was being said during that meeting. And I don't think there's ever been a time when that has not happened.
Thank you.
I'm very grateful for that part of choosing music.
Preparation in any calling, it's there. When we're prepared, we won't fear, and we'll be able to strengthen other people. That's the wonderful thing. Sometimes in the church we feel like, oh gosh, I don't have time to prepare, or I shouldn't have to practice for my calling, but people are, they're preparing for gospel doctrine. They're preparing for a Relief Society presidency meeting. They're preparing their agendas. They're preparing various things. And so preparation in the music calling is important. And I want to promise to you that your efforts to prepare in your music calling will be rewarded, and that not only will you be blessed, but other people will be blessed as well, and that you'll be the instrument in the hands of the Lord in strengthening someone else who is ready to praise or is seeking relief, that is experiencing sorrow and that needs a break. And you can lift that burden from their shoulders for a few minutes and give them a chance to breathe in the love and the care of the Lord for them, and then give them the strength they need in order to press forward. And that is what is so wonderful about serving in a music calling, is that you can do that not for one person at a time, but for everybody that's sitting there, if they also have prepared. So thank you. And we will see you in the devotional. Those of you who are singing from 9 o'clock a.m., see you there, ready to go.